Well, good evening. My name is Chris Ward. I am your state assembly member for the 78th Assembly District, which includes a lot of our neighborhoods in central San Diego. And I want to welcome you all for joining us on this evening's affordable housing webinar. Many of you know I've been serving as your representative at the state assembly to work on so many issues up here at the state capitol. We're up here right now as we're starting off our first round of policy committee hearings to work on some of the most pressing issues facing our communities and our families. And certainly the assembly, the state budget is driving a lot of the conversation as we're challenged with reconciling some of our reduced revenues, but preserving a lot of the important things that matter to us, including our housing program dollars, homelessness relief, and renter support. So as chair of the Assembly Housing on Community Development Committee, it's also important to me to make sure that we're getting the word out for some of the affordable housing opportunities to my constituents. And I just wanted to go ahead and preface this to make sure that many of our attendees and those that are going to be watching this webinar after we conclude today understand we talk about two different things in the form of affordable housing. One is the subsidized affordable housing, making sure that we have enough dedicated stock that's out there to support many of our working families and individuals across our community. And the second is to make sure that we are having more naturally affordable housing for the middle class and for so many that want to see themselves as a part of San Diego's future. And there's a lot of ways that we're trying to tackle some of these crises. I myself have introduced a number of bills to be able to help support mostly the latter, but a little bit of the former, to make sure that we're working on reducing costs that it takes to develop more affordable housing and attainable housing. Some bills include making sure that we are working to support student housing right on our CSU campus, that we are taking a close eye on affordable senior housing. So those that are vulnerable and on fixed incomes have more supply to be able to support some of their options. The recovery housing is available for those challenged with substance use disorders or otherwise need stabilized places to be able to get well, and making sure that they're adhering to some of our housing first principles, and generally reducing some of the bureaucracy and the red tape that we see to be able to make things happen faster and be able to release funds back down to the community a lot quicker. So we have a wide range of bill ideas and a number more that some of my colleagues across the state are presenting as well to be able to vet and make sure that we are delivering on these goals and these outcomes that we must see here, the relief that we need now and the support that we need for the near future. This evening, we are going to be reviewing a couple of programs specifically. The California Dream for All program. It offers 20% support for down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time home buyers. We want to make sure that we know about the opportunities to be able to understand some of the local affordable rentals that are in the San Diego area, and particularly those that the San Diego Housing Commission has on its roles, where it helps to organize with some of the local developers and local grant and low interest loan assistance for some first-time home buyers. And finally, and most importantly, we want to make sure that renters that are struggling or have any questions about rental related issues have a chance to have some of their concerns heard and addressed. And to do this, we have a great number of speakers that are going to be able to help us answer some of the very technical questions that are servants at both the state and local level, working with community members every day to be able to meet their housing needs. Eric Johnson is a spokesperson for the California Housing Finance Agency. We have Sujatha Raman, the vice president of the Single Family Housing Finance at the San Diego Housing Commission. And finally, Alex Fish, who is a special assistant to the California Attorney General. We have a number of pre-submitted questions that attendees like yourself may have reached out to us, and we've tried to be able to synthesize those into a way towards the end of our presentations that we were able to kind of group them by topic so we can make sure to address those topics. And then as time might permit, if you have any questions at all, you can still feel free to drop those into the chat, and we'll do our best to keep us on time and be sure we get to all of these topics. With that, I'd like to welcome our first speaker. Eric Johnson is with the California Housing Finance Agency, who has a presentation he's going to load up on the screen here for us all to talk a little bit about homeownership opportunities and the Dream for All program. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much, Assembly Board. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope all our constituents are doing well. It's a lovely day here in Sacramento. I hope it's just as gorgeous in San Diego. I'll start right off. I'm with the California Housing Finance Agency, And we were formed in 1975 under Jerry Brown's first administration with the specific mission to help people buy their first homes. Now we have a vision, a mission, diversity and equity and equality are very important to us, making sure that the people who need our assistance are the ones who have the most access to it, the ones who are going to be able to take advantage of the programs. We've helped more than 220,000 Californians buy their first homes. We started almost 45 years ago, and we're just rolling along. So I'm going to give a quick overview of our two main programs with an emphasis on Dream for All. I would like to start off with our main program that is around, it's going on right now. It's been going on for the past 10, 15 years. And what this is a program to help with down payment assistance. It's called the My Home Assistance Program. And it can help you out with up to 3% of the price of your home for closing costs and down payment assistance. And so that can be used anywhere in the state. It has pretty simple qualifying things you need. So it's pretty straightforward, and has deferred payments, which means you don't have to make payments on that 3% until you sell or refinance the first mortgage. You have income limits, which is probably one of the most important things. In San Diego, the income limits for My Home are $231,000. And these are programs for low and moderate income home buyers. It is kind of odd to be saying that $231,000 a year is a moderate income, but that's the way things are in California these days. We have to have these high incomes so people can afford to buy these houses, which are at very high prices. Our new program is called the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program. That is an income limit of $185,000 in San Diego County. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that now. We have a minimum of credit score of 680. We have a maximum debt to income ratio that is 45%. Some of these terms might be a little bit confusing. I'd really recommend that you talk with one of our approved lenders. Our list of approved lenders is on our website at calhfa.ca.gov. That's going to be on the very last slide that I'm going to show you, so you can take that down and make sure you go visit them. We have hundreds of approved lenders that are across the state. They've all gone through a pretty rigorous application process. We also have a more select list of preferred loan officers also on our website. And those folks have been doing loans for a long time. They know our loans backwards and forwards. They're very familiar to working with first-time home buyers. And it may take 6 months, a year to get your credit in order, make sure things are squared away. But these folks are happy to work with you. Everyone has to be a first-time home buyer, which means you haven't owned a home in the past 3 years. So if you used to own a home, had to maybe sell it during the Great Recession back in 2009, 2010, you've been renting since then, you're a first-time home buyer, you can still use our programs. We also think it's really important that not only are people able to get into the home, but they're able to stay in the home. So we require everybody to take an online 8-hour home buyer education course to make sure you know all the ins and outs of what home buyership entails. Let's talk a little bit about Dream for All. We entered this program back in April, and in April, we went through the funds in about 11 days. For this round, which is opening on April 3rd and goes through April 29th, we're having a lottery. So you can apply and apply for a voucher anytime between April 3rd and April 29th. Once again, you will need to be with an approved lender. One of those folks is on our website at calhfa.ca.gov, and work with them. They'll give you a pre-approval letter. Then there'll be some documents we'll need to submit to our portal, which will open on April 3rd. It's going to be proof that you're a first-time home buyer, and there's a first-generation home buyer requirement on this. The legislature decided that it was important that folks who have not had access to generational wealth, the opportunity to use their parents' home either to live in, or if the parents sold the home, take advantage of some of the income from that sale. So in order to apply for this round of Dream for All, you have to be a first-generation home buyer. What that means is at least one person on the loan has not owned a home in the past 7 years. Also, they have to either, their parents do not currently own a home, or if their parents have died, their parents did not own a home when they died, or if you were ever in the foster care system and didn't have parents who could pass along a home to you, you can also apply for this loan. This loan will go up to 20% of the loan amount or $150,000, whichever is less. And then you have to pay back a share of the appreciation. So if your home goes up by $100,000, say, between when you buy it and when you sell it, then in addition to the loan you get for the down payment, that 20%, you also have to pay back 20% of that shared appreciation. Again, all this information is on our website. We have a special 45-minute video just to explain the shared appreciation part. It can be pretty complex. Once again, talk to one of our approved lenders. So what we're going to do is we also have those income limits, the first generation home buyer aspect of it. Those are pretty important. Minimum credit score of 680 to apply for this loan. And that's really the most important part. Again, I can't overemphasize this enough. It's really important that you talk to one of our approved lenders. They'll be able to help you out and make sure things are squared away. You have until the 29th of April to submit your application, so it's not super urgent. You can submit it anytime between the 3rd and the 29th. Whether you submit on the 3rd or the 29th, you have the same possibility of being selected for a voucher. So talk to one of our approved lenders, visit our website, calhfa.ca.gov, and the best of luck. I think you're still muted, Assemblymember Ward.
You're right. Zoom error. Thank you, Eric. We'll make sure to grab that website and drop that down into the chat so everybody has a chance to explore a little bit further about their options if home ownership is their goal and they want to avail themselves of these programs. And just to underscore as well, the work that Cal HFA does, where Eric is helping to lead some of those efforts, are the kinds of things that we're trying to fund. And it's part of my job as your representative to make sure that we have a balanced budget that preserves many of these programs. And so it's an ongoing conversation as we try to work on a difficult state budget issue to make sure that something like Dream for All, which we call oversubscribed in the last couple of years, there's been a lot more applicants than we have resources available, that we're not further regressing on the options so that we can get more of that out to would-be homeowners. Thank you, Eric. We'll circle back with you in some Q&A.
Thanks so much.
Next, I would like to be able to welcome Sujatha Raman with the San Diego Housing Commission, who is going to be talking a little bit about some of our local options to seek out affordable rentals and for purchase homes and home ownership grant opportunities. Welcome.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ward. I'm honored to be here. Let me just quickly share my screen. Established in 1979, the San Diego Housing Commission is an award-winning public agency dedicated to preserving and increasing affordable housing within the city of San Diego. Some of its functions include providing federal rental housing assistance, which is Section 8 vouchers, to approximately 17,000 households annually, being an affordable housing developer and lender producing 23,000 units, and providing homeownership assistance programs to low and moderate income home buyers. More than 25,000 affordable rental housing units are in service today in the city of San Diego. Information about affordable rentals is available on the San Diego Housing Commission's website. You can see the link here. It includes the Affordable Housing Resource Guide in English and Spanish and an affordable housing dashboard. The dashboard enables you to click on a property shown on a map of the city and select Property Overview to see additional details, such as transit options nearby. You can also find information about affordable housing properties the Housing Commission specifically owns or manages. The Housing Commission has administered a first-time homebuyer program in the city of San Diego since 1988. We have provided more than $200 million in the form of loans, grants, and mortgage credit certificates to assist approximately 6,050 families in purchasing a home in San Diego. San Diego Housing Commission administers several first-time homebuyer programs, both in the city of San Diego and neighboring jurisdictions like the County of San Diego, which includes all unincorporated areas of the county and cities like La Mesa, Lemon Grove, Santee, to name a few. Additionally, we also administer first-time homebuyer programs for the cities of Chula Vista and El Cajon. Essentially, the Housing Commission is the regional administrator of first-time homebuyer programs in San Diego. The City of San Diego's first-time homebuyer program is offered to low-income buyers, that is, whose income is less than 80% of the area median income limit. We provide a down payment loan of up to 25% of the purchase price. It should be noted that this is one of the largest down payment program subsidies offered not just in California, but nationwide. No payments are required for 30 years unless the owner sells or no longer occupies the property as a primary residence, at which time the principal balance, including accrued interest, must be repaid. The buyer must contribute a minimum of 1% of the purchase price as down payment, and the purchase price cannot exceed what you see on the slide, which is $1,030,000 for a detached home or $603,000 for a condo or townhome. Additionally, the Housing Commission also provides a $10,000 grant to low-income home buyers to help towards closing costs. The grant is forgiven at close of escrow. According to a recent Urban Institute study that the San Diego Housing Commission commissioned, homeownership rates among Black and Latino households are significantly lower than white and Asian households in the city of San Diego. The most common cited reason was lack of down payment and high debt-to-income ratio. Since homeownership is a critical tool for wealth generation, the Housing Commission has implemented strategies to increase homeownership for people of color by providing direct assistance as well as referrals to financial and debt counseling services, all of which have been supported by a $7.5 million grant from the Wells Fargo Foundation. One of the strategies is the Housing Commission's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, that's BIPOC, middle income program, which offers a $40,000 loan and grant combination that can be used for down payment and closing costs, or just a $20,000 grant to be used towards closing costs. This program is available to BIPOC households earning between 80% and 150% of area median income. Buyers must contribute 1.5% of the purchase price towards down payment. Here's a slide showing first-time homebuyer programs that the Housing Commission administers in the county of San Diego, Chula Vista, and El Cajon. Each of these programs offer slightly different types of assistance, details of which can be found on our website. Here we see the impact of using City of San Diego's down payment assistance program. The table on the left shows that a household of 4 earning approximately $108,000, which is 80% of the area median income, and putting 5% down, which is about $27,000, could potentially buy a home sold at $555,000. The table on the right shows that the same household, if they used our down payment assistance program, they would need to put only 1% down, which is $7,300. The Housing Commission would provide a deferred loan of 25% of the purchase price, which is $182,500. And this family can now qualify to buy a house at $730,000. And we know the prices in San Diego have risen significantly in the last couple of years. With the Housing Commission's assistance, this buyer's purchasing power increases by $175,000. So how does one apply? Anyone interested in our programs should contact one of the loan officers who are listed on the participating lender list on our website. We have several hundred loan officers working at more than 50 different lenders who have all been trained by the Housing Commission on our various first-time homebuyer programs. The loan officer will review the buyer's income, credit, and assets and determine whether they're eligible. If approved, the buyer will then work with a real estate agent in finding a property. The buyers will also need to take an extensive homebuyer education and course and a pre-purchase counseling with a HUD certified counselor. The loan officer will be the primary point of contact and will submit the application on the buyer's behalf to the Housing Commission. Additionally, the Housing Commission recently established a dedicated homeownership advisor to assist low-income households and households of color that want to learn more about available assistance for down payment or closing costs. The homeownership advisor is available to answer questions about the programs, assess financial preparedness, and as needed, connect callers with organizations that provide credit and financial counseling, debt reduction, and homebuyer education services. The homeownership advisor can be reached at the number shown here, 619-578-7788, or the email shown on this slide. Here's some additional contact information for our team at the Housing Commission. And as Assemblymember Ward said, we have some time at the end for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujana. I hope everybody can appreciate, first of all, we've got an amazing resource here right in San Diego. We're trying to make sure across California that first you're supported so that you can do this good work, get the information out there and support those that are calling in or writing in for assistance, but also that other communities are able to take your examples and make sure that we're looking for listings of affordable housing or access to local programs as well, or something that they should be able to have for themselves, something we reviewed in our housing committee just this morning, actually. Next, our last speaker before we get to a few questions and answers is Alex Fish with the California Department of Justice, the Attorney General's office. He's going to give us a presentation for renters about some of the tenant law information that you might want to be aware of, some of the laws that exist and some of the resources about how to investigate any issues if there is a violation of the law. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember Ward, and thank you very much for your leadership, both in the Assembly and on the Housing Committee. And thanks to everyone who's taken time out of their day to be here. My name is Alex Fish. I'm Special Assistant Attorney General, dedicated exclusively to the Department of Justice housing portfolio. The Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is the state's top lawyer and law enforcement official who has a broad range of duties to protect and serve the people and interests of California, which include protecting our natural resources, enforcing civil rights laws, helping victims of identity theft, and a wide range of criminal work that our office does as well. Just over 2 years ago, Attorney General Bonta, recognizing the significant impact of the state's housing issues on Californians, reassigned some of the deputy attorneys general in the office and supervising deputies attorney general to form the housing justice team and to really focus on the production of affordable and housing and housing at all income levels, as well as protection of tenants, enforcing new tenant laws that we'll discuss briefly here, and making sure that state laws regarding preventing displacement of tenants are enforced. And so this is very new work. It's very exciting. I was hired almost a year ago to lead that team, to coordinate the efforts. And it's very exciting because I recognize how important it is to Californians, and especially San Diegans. I know that over half of all San Diego renters are rent burdened, which means that you're paying more than 30% of your income just on housing. And that is a problem that I think about night and day, and every attorney on the housing justice team does as well. I've been asked to speak specifically about tenants work, and that could easily take more than 10 minutes, and I've already burnt some of that time. But I think the most important thing I want to share is that we have some resources online. This is a complicated topic, and I'm just going to touch on some high-level things, but I'm going to say this a few times. If you want to know more, please go to oag.ca.gov/housing. I'll drop a link in the chat so that people can check that out. But we have there a number of consumer alerts for tenants dealing with basic know your rights issues, dealing with what the eviction process is, what to do if you're facing eviction, dealing with habitability, the safety and cleanliness of your rented unit, dealing with security deposits. And additionally, we recognize that landlords are trying to comply with the law too. We have a fact sheet for landlords to help navigate the changing landscape of California landlord-tenant law. So I think from that, the number one substantive issue that I want you to know is that in California, tenants do have rights. There is a statewide tenant protection statute called the Tenant Protection Act that Attorney General Bonta was a co-author of when he was in the Assembly. It's now the law statewide, and for many, many types of residents, for residences, types of homes, over 15 years or older, if they're built more than 15 years ago, you can generally receive no more than a 10% rent increase in 1 year. That's a hard cap, and that is actually 5% plus the consumer price index. Now, if you go to that OAG, is in Office of the Attorney General, oag.ca.gov/housing website, and scroll down, you'll find in 24 different languages a Know Your Rights sheet that includes for every metropolitan area, for every county in the state, the maximum rent increase for August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023, and August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2024. You can receive no more than 2 rent increases per 12-month period, and they cannot together exceed that amount that's calculated every year. And we will, as long as Attorney General Bonta is the Attorney General, we will update that every year in spring. Then we'll have an update in a couple months so that landlords and tenants can look quickly and see what the statewide rent cap is for that year. You need to receive, the landlord needs to provide formal written notice of that rent increase. A call, text, or email is not sufficient. Writing on paper. That notice needs to come at least 30 days before the increase can take effect. And if for some other reason, because your rent is not protected by the Tenant Protection Act, the rent increase is more than 10%, your landlord must provide you with 90 days notice before the increase can take effect. Another thing that I think is critically important for every tenant to understand, because I think many don't, is that you can only be evicted by a court order. It is illegal for a landlord to lock you out, to shut off your utilities, or put your things on your curb, or otherwise try to force you out. You need to be formally evicted before you can be forced out. You can choose different treatment, but that would be a voluntary choice. You can only be evicted by a court order. If you receive an eviction notice, get legal help right away, because the eviction process is something that you need help with, frankly. In general, just so you know, you can only be evicted for what's called a just cause. That can be not paying rent, breaking another material term of your lease, creating a nuisance, or conducting unlawful activities on your premises, or other listed reasons. If you're evicted for a reason that is not your fault, that is not paying rent or breaking a lease term, there are specified protections which are going to be enhanced on April 1st by a bill that was passed and signed into law last year and becomes effective on April 1st. Those reasons can include substantial renovation, but under this new law, SB 567, the landlord who's doing a substantial renovation needs to provide written evidence of the renovation, needs to actually complete it within a certain period of time. Additionally, another reason that someone might be evicted for cause is if the landlord, or I'm sorry, for no cause, is if the landlord is moving a relative, a bona fide move-in to the unit. If that happens, that relative needs to live in the unit for a year straight. If they do not, the property needs to be reoffered to the tenant at the same rent. There are penalties that the Office of the Attorney General is able to request and collect in court. We have enforced the Tenant Protection Act 3 times in the last year. Those are the first times. And I should have said this up front, None of this is legal advice. You need to get an attorney if you have a legal issue. This is really information purposes and to let you know what's out there. Additionally, we can't take individual cases. We are the Attorney General represents all people. We will take on significant cases that affect the law or affect a widespread activity, and generally to increase awareness and compliance. So we've enforced against large institutional landlords, we've enforced against property managers and smaller landlords, and we've enforced against employer landlords. We are looking all over the state, and if you are aware of a systemic violation, something significant, something widespread, there's also on our webpage and a place to fill out a report and to refer that to us. For something that's individualized to you, you're going to need your own lawyer. And again, there's information on each of these consumer alerts available at oag.ca.gov/housing. Another thing you should be aware of is that your landlord needs to repair health and safety issues on your property. For example, you need to have safe and working plumbing and heating. The premises need to be free of roaches and rats. And while this is tricky, if you are, we recognize that housing insecurity makes this tricky to ask for enforcement. However, if there's a health or safety issue, you should ask your landlord in writing to repair it, and you should keep copies of your requests. If your landlord, and when you leave, your landlord has to return your security deposit. The landlord has to itemize any deductions from the security deposit within 21 days of you moving out. Deductions can be made for things like unpaid rent, cleaning and repairing significant damage beyond ordinary wear and tear. They cannot be withheld for damage that was already there or ordinary wear and tear. And you can perform that cleaning yourself as long as you do it to the condition that you took the property in, plus ordinary wear and tear. If you have a disability, your landlord must provide reasonable accommodations to you. Your landlord cannot discriminate against you. Discrimination in California includes discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability status, marital status, income source, for example, Section 8 vouchers, veteran status, and other characteristics that you can learn more about on the Attorney General's website. Your landlord may not retaliate against you for exercising your tenant rights and cannot threaten to disclose your immigration status to pressure you to move out. And you have additional rights. These rights that I've described are statewide. I'm not familiar with San Diego's. I know a little bit, but I'm not going to give specific advice to San Diego. But your municipality can have additional tenants' rights beyond this. Again, please get help as soon as you believe that your landlord has violated your tenant rights or if you're facing eviction. If you can't afford a lawyer, you might qualify for free or low-cost legal aid. To find a legal aid office near you, this is another wonderful resource that I'll drop into the chat. Check out Law Help. Law is in LAW, help, CA, lawhelpca.org. That's lawhelpca.org. Then click on the tab in the middle of the page that says Find Legal Help and enter your county to find your local legal aid. If you don't qualify for legal aid and you still need help finding a lawyer, take a look at the California State Bar webpage. That's also linked in our consumer alert to find a local certified lawyer service. And if you are really if you have no other options, the California Courts webpage has some additional information specific to tenants who are facing evictions. So being mindful of time and the fact that I am a talking head, albeit with my touch-up appearance cranked to 10, I will leave it there and refer you to our resources. And I hope that you find that helpful. I hope that you don't need it, but it's available for you if you need it. So once again, that's a general tenants' rights, know your rights notice, which includes county-specific Tenant Protection Act rent caps. There's a habitability consumer rights alert. There is a security deposit consumer rights alert. There's also something for landlords to know, to be familiar with these same things. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you again, Assemblymember Ward.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that broad overview. The Attorney General helps so much to be able to enforce the law, and I appreciate the resources that you've directed some of our those that are observing here tonight into the chat. Thank you, Rachel, for also summarizing some of these as well, so people can grab those and go dig a little bit deeper into the state and local programs and resources. I know not just the San Diego Housing Commission and the Attorney General, but the County of San Diego also has affordable housing resources and information. And then the Tenants' Rights Assistance, we've got a great resource with the local tenant advocacy organizations as well, to be able to help you with free legal aid if you qualify, understand your rights, and look for options to make sure that you are able to stay in your unit. Alex, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We've got, like I said, a couple of issued questions that kind of came in that kind of got grouped together in some topics. And I definitely want to stay on the issue of support or information for renters. We had the law that was passed, I think it was in 2018, 2019, the Renters Protection Act, that established essentially a rent stabilization. And I wanted you to be able to underscore so people kind of know whether or not they're feeling violated. Yes, rents are incredibly high. A lot of reasons why that has come to be, and a lot of things that we're working on to address that. But that doesn't mean that anybody should be seeing rent increases that are abusive or incredibly excessive beyond today's rates. So, Alex, how often can a landlord raise some of the monthly rent or the annual rent, and what is the rate that's allowed for an increase of rental property of apartments?
A landlord can increase the rent no more than twice per 12-month period, and that the total of those rental increases cannot exceed 5% plus the consumer price index. For the period from August 1st, 2023 through July 31st of this year in San Diego County, that's a maximum of 10%, which I recognize is a lot for people who are facing rent burden. But before that, before the Tenant Protection Act, there was absolutely no sort of anti-gouging rent stabilization measure, but now there is a statewide one. And by each year that will change. Obviously last year, the consumer price index went up by more than 5%, which is why the 10% cap is there. One other thing I'd just note is that I believe it's 2/3 of the consumer price index increases over the last year have been in the housing category. So I want to echo your comments and also thank you for trying to tackle the more fundamental housing issues.
Thank you. And so if somebody gets a rental increase proposed, that is, say, a 25% increase, what do they do?
A 25% increase, document, again, this is not legal advice. This is, and I highly recommend checking out our resources at oag.ca.gov/housing. Document everything in writing, seek out legal help. If your landlord should, before you get a lawyer, your landlord should acquiesce and recognize what the law is if you have everything in writing. And send them our resources. Send them the Office of the Attorney General's notice, both for tenants and for landlords, and ask them to comply with the law.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this back to Eric with California Housing Finance Authority, back to home ownership. Is somebody allowed to use their 401k funds without maybe a tax penalty for home buying, down payment, and closing assistance and closing fees? And what might be the percent that they'd be able to withdraw from a 401k for that purpose?
As I understand it, you probably want to talk to a tax professional on this. But as I understand it, there's no carve out for withdrawing 401k funds without penalty. I'm fairly certain you'd still have to pay whatever that penalty is, just like you'd have to if you withdrew it for your kid's college education or other expenses like that. But again, you should definitely talk to a tax pro to really get a for certain answer on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe some of these resources can help us point us in that direction, or at least talking to somebody, say at the Housing Commission, San Diego Housing Commission, can help lead people in the right direction. We have another question, which I think I'm going to tackle, and that was about whether or not we have foreclosed properties and issues around county real estate tax sales. And then people are seeing cash buyers come in and scoop those up. With the prices of real estate, just trying to get regular folks, into some of these opportunities, and they're finding themselves unable to participate. Well, some good news is that we recognized this at the legislature about 1.5 years ago and did pass a bill that is going to try to make sure that there is a delay for a corporation or a real estate trust to be able to jump in on some of these foreclosure properties. We want our neighbors and those to have a fighting chance and to be able to get in first and be able to compete for some of those. So at least there's I think, a 90-day window where they're able to do that. But again, the competition is out there, and we do need more homes overall to be able to support the total demand that we have here for us. And so we're working on that while also trying to level the playing field for individuals and families to be able to compete more fairly. I'm going to turn this next question, I think, back over to the Department of Justice, sort of still in the same vein. I see people want to understand about the local consumer price index and what the maximum can be. You said up to 10%. Of course, a lot of that with the inflation issues that we've seen over the last couple of years, we've hit that 10% cap in San Diego County. But how can we know what that CPI index might be? Where are some resources that we can be able to double check the math and see what that limit should be?
I'm gonna cheat here and reference again our notice for consumers at oag.ca.gov/housing. It will be updated annually. Otherwise, you kind of have to work through the statute, which is not a undoable undertaking. The Consumer Price Index is published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it is specific to the Los Angeles area, Riverside area, San Francisco area, and San Diego area. All other counties are calculated by reference to the California Consumer Price Index, which is published by the California Department of Industrial Relations. But if you don't want to remember all that, just remember oag.ca.gov/housing.
Great, thank you. And our final pre-submitted question, kind of in this topic, is over to Sujita with the San Diego Housing Commission. One of our participants has I think is managing 3 extremely low income units that are today barely covering their expenses, the utilities, the taxes, the yard maintenance, et cetera. Any repairs and maintenance are coming out of pocket. And so are there any breaks on taxes or utilities or relief or programs or grants that can help some of the owners and managers of extremely low income units be able to preserve their affordability?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the San Diego Housing Commission does not particularly have any programs or grants to address those specific expenses the landlord mentioned. We did some research and we're not aware of any other city programs either, but we encourage the landlord to contact the County of San Diego regarding their property taxes and possibly SDG&E regarding the utilities. And then additionally, the Southern California Rental Housing Association and/or California Apartment Association may also be aware of programs and resources available to possibly assist landlords.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Rachel, I'm going to turn it back to you to see if there's any other questions that might have come up in our chat that we can address with the couple of minutes that we have left on this webinar tonight.
Yes, actually, Assemblymember, this one is for you. Is there a definition of affordable housing? I hear the term all the time, but the prices hardly seem affordable.
Thank you. Yeah, try to address it openly in the opening part of the segment, but also I know this comes up all the time in our community town halls and when the question comes up. So there really are 2 ways that we think about affordable housing. One is when we are trying to make sure that the affordable subsidized housing that government is able to support and fund is set aside and dedicated for approximately 55 years. It will always be there for community members of a certain income bracket. So if they only make 80 or 60 or sometimes less than 50% of the median income, we try to make sure that there's more of those, quote, dedicated affordable units that are set aside. Now, I think what you're referring to, and there's not enough of those, of course, and we have a real challenge making sure it's going to take more money to be able to support and develop more of those units, but we have even more things to tackle in the form of broader affordability. If you don't qualify for some of those subsidized units and you're trying to get something that is in range of your budget, a fair budget. You heard earlier one of our presenters talk about being rent burdened. Generally, we think about that as trying to make sure that you're not spending any more than 30% of your income on living expenses, so that you can have something for, left over for food and for the rest of an enjoyable quality of life. And then beyond that, we see another sort of category about people that pay more than 50% of their income just on rent. That's extremely rent burdened. Unfortunately, more and more San Diegans and Californians are falling into these categories because the rent got so high. And so we have to do more to be able to try to rein the market in a way that is producing more units that are attainable, that are in reach. And I think that when I hear from most of my constituents that are talking about affordable housing, we're working on something on the latter, because the former issue is really just making sure the government is spending more to be able to have dedicated units set aside. And let's cross our fingers. We've got some a glimmer of hope and some news out of Washington, D.C., which, by the way, the last time they got involved federally to support housing program was back in the 1940s. We need to make sure that we are doing a better job to support housing for all. And so I think on all these levels of government, we're working on these sort of different questions. I hope that gives you sort of a broader understanding when we're talking about quote unquote affordable housing.
Awesome. Thank you, Assemblymember. That is all the questions in the Q&A.
Well, I'm sure this is going to generate a lot more questions, and always see my office as a resource. Rachel is my district director, and we are open for business. If you have an issue that came up or an afterthought that you wanted to have answered, or perhaps you're watching this on one of our channels after this is published, please see us by calling our district office. That number is 619 280 7801. Double checking I didn't get the old number put into there. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have on specific legislation or resources that are available to you, or anybody that might need some of this assistance. I want to thank our guests tonight, our experts from the California Housing Finance Association, the San Diego Housing Commission, and the Attorney General's Office for their hard work every day and their expertise participating in this webinar. With that, I wish you, your families, and your neighbors all the best, and I hope to see you around the San Diego community very soon. Thank you and have a good night.